recording, so you can always have a look at the video afterwards.
Yeah.
Right, so back in Blender, where have I got it here? Come on, open up. Goodness gracious, come on, why didn't that open? Okay, so this was the trim sheet we created last week. If you remember, it was just a kind of Celtic knot. Did I do the Celtic knot circle? Yeah, I did. And we brought in this sculpture of a horse, which you can kind of see a bit better if I lift off the colour. Just something I downloaded from Polyhaven, I think it came from. We made a simple kind of cylinder with a shiny blue material, and we made a Celtic knot thing with gold, kind of a gold material. And we used this grab dock thing, which you can get from, I haven't got it open again now, so let's have a look for it. Just grab dock, and I think I looked up just GitHub, and there it is. You can literally just get it from there. You'll have to look through and find it under the releases, a one that'll match your version of Blender. I'm using 3.6 because the version 4 ones tend to crash me PC a little bit too often. Don't mind using it for myself, but it's a bit of a pain when I'm doing these sessions, so I use a bit more of a stable one. But this latest one is for the latest version of Blender. Just click on latest, it'll open up the page and you can download the zip file. If you don't know how to install add-ons in Blender, it's really simple. You don't unzip your zip file, just download it, go into Blender, edit, preferences, install under add-ons, and you just find your zip file, install the add-on, and it'll appear, and you must remember to make sure it's ticked, and then you're good to go. So here's my grab dock, ticked, ready to go. So using grab dock, it's so simple. You literally just put the items that you want. Anything that is like strips, I would just normally put at the top, and any extra bits and bobs I'd put at the bottom. And as long as it's kind of just above or showing through the plane, this plane is a grab dock plane which doesn't render. So if I was to turn it off, you'll see it there, it's vanished. That's all that's in the scene. I've got it set up for the folder that I want it to go into, which is just my temporary folder on the C drive with a subfolder grab dock. I've given it a name, trim. I left everything as standard. I clicked on open folder on export so I can see them when it's done and check that everything's right. And I created the normals. I created an alpha, an albedo for the colour, roughness and metallic, and that was all I ticked. And then just literally export maps, and you end up with these things here, just images of whatever you've created. And then once we'd done that, we then opened up, where's my column? There it is. Not going to save the changes. We did this with it and started decorating the column using the trim sheet. So it's basically got, it's only got two textures. Well, it hasn't, it's got no like maps as well, but I'm going to show how to get rid of all of those and just use the alpha for it. But we needed the alpha because we've got the marble, and we needed transparency for the marble. Well, it's supposed to be marble, it's not, it's sandstone, sorry, sandstone, because we needed the sandstone to show through, and the actual images that we were using. A little bit confusing, but I'll probably just do it again, actually, to be honest. So here was the shader that we made in Blender. Think I'm going to do it, let's just start again, shall we, because we covered the trim sheet, so we'll cover how to make the shader in Blender, and then I'll cover Magic UV as well, and then we'll cover how to bring the whole thing into Unity. So because a standard material starts with just these two, I'm going to select them and hit Control and I and delete everything. We've now just got a plain white column with nothing else on there. And we'd start off by, I think what I started off with last time was just the alpha. If I didn't, I probably should have done, because it's easy to see, and just plug it straight into the colour so you can see exactly what's going on. Now then, the UVs, this is where it's a bit weird. You know what I think I'll do? I think what I'll do is I'll just get rid of these and we'll start again. And I'll literally just, yeah, we'll just do a basic UV unwrap. So we're back to the beginning. Nothing's looking right. It's not how we want it, but that's fine, because I'll just get rid of that menu there so we've got a bit more room. So what we want to do, I'm going to start with this top. This top is going to have the circle of knots around it. Let's just open up the same image that's on the object so it makes a bit more sense. And I'm pressing 3 to go into face mode, so when I click I'm selecting a face. 1, 2 and 3 basically is vertices, which is your dots. 2 for the edges, I can select individual lines, or 3 for faces. So we'll select that face and I want it, I can over here, I can just use G to grab and place it over there, and then I can just use my mouse wheel to scroll in a little bit. And I'm just going to scale it down with S and just move it till it looks like it's kind of in the middle. You can eyeball it on this side as well. So when you're happy enough with it, just kind of click and that's done. And the bottom one will want to be the same. So I think we'll go into Magic UV. Now Magic UV in earlier versions of Blender is a built-in add-on, so you don't have to download anything. You just go into your add-ons, do a search for Magic, and there it is, and just tick it and you've got it. If you have a newer version of Blender, it's not in your add-ons, it's in the extensions. So you'll have an extra button here for extensions and you can search for it in there and install it the same way. It just means that it needs to be downloaded from the Blender website and installed rather than being built into the software itself. That's the only difference really between add-ons and extensions. So once you've got Magic UV, there is a very cool thing it does. You'll notice, I'm just going to minimize that because this is how it'll look. Under the Edit tab down the side here, I just opened this menu with the N key. We often call it the N panel. Under Edit, you'll have these 3 little icons that look kind of, I think it kind of looks like paint dripping down a wall or something. But these are your Magic UV menus. Lots of stuff you can do. But the first one that's probably the most useful and well worth exploring is the Copy Paste UV bit. I think normally default is selected. I usually select sequence because I usually select a few faces that I want to copy. Seams is usually selected, just untick that. Unless you particularly want the seams. The seams are these red lines where I've told it to cut it when I've unwrapped it. And what I want to do is copy this and make the bottom look exactly the same. In fact, let's get rid of the light map UV because that's just going to confuse things. So we copy texture. It's called texture because my UV map is called texture. Normally it's called UV map by default. So if I was to do it now, it'll say copy UV map. And I select this one and do paste UV map. And now we've got both of these on top of each other so that they're both get this circular Celtic knot thing on it. And we can do the same thing to perfectly line up the other things that we're going to be using. But let's start with the stripy bits first. I want to get these bits in place. So I'm going to start with a stripe around the top and the bottom. So what I'm going to do is select all of that bit, and I think what I'm going to do is, what did I do last time? I did a loop cut around there, didn't I? And I did that with Control and R, and then just click and it'll automatically put it dead in the centre. And then with Control and B for bevel, we can literally just drag that out a bit, so that now we've got these sections at the top and the bottom which are the same width. So I'm going to select in face mode, select that ring there. No, what I should have done, and I forgot about this, we need to get it to stretch the full width, because when we start to do this Celtic knot, we want it to look as seamless as we can get it, so that where it ends here, it's going to start again on the other side. So we put this dead in the middle, and we do that using the end panel in the UV inspector bit, and we just type 0.5. Make sure it's 0.5, 0.5, so the centre of the island is right in the middle of the box. And we're going to scale it up so that the edge meets the edge of the texture. So S for scale, and I'm going to hold down shift when I start getting close, so it's much smaller increments, and that'll do. That's pretty close. And now what I can do is I can select that ring there, and I'm going to move it with G for grab and Y on the up down axis, and I'm going to move it, and if you see on the right, as I move it up and down, the texture's moving with it. So I'm going to place it roughly where I want that stripe to be, which is there. And then I can do the same thing again. Copy UV map, select that, and paste UV map. Except it hasn't done it for the full thing because I didn't do the sequence. Now this is where it gets a bit tedious. So what you need to do is select them in a certain sequence. So I'm going to start from the seam. Actually, let's centre that so it's a bit easier. Start from the seam, and I'm just going to hold down shift and select each face in order. And because we're copying the selection sequence, and then we'll go down at the bottom, zoom in on that, and start again from the seam. And paste. And it's still not quite there. Why has that happened? Have I made a mistake? Let's copy that top one and paste it to the bottom one. There we go. So we've got a ring at the top and the bottom. The rest of this, if it's confusing, just right click and merge it cursor. The cursor's down here, and it's just put all the vertices in one spot, so it'll all be black. It's literally picking up 1 pixel of colour. So we got that. That looks all right. I want a row of this bit now, this Celtic braid thing. So select all that, and to do this, I'm in face mode. I'm holding down Alt and clicking on one of the lines, and it selects everything on that kind of row. And I'm going to unwrap just with you and you, basic unwrap. I'm going to do the same thing again, stick it in the middle, just scale it up a bit. No, scale. And then we'll do the loop cut again and the bevel. And I'm going to give it a bit more base this time because it looks a bit wider. That should be enough. I'll select back into face mode, select that ring, and we're going to move it down till it covers the Celtic knot, and just place it where you want it. Fine tuning, just hold down shift and you've got much smaller movements then. So I'll stick that there, and I'll do this again. So select all of these, copy, and paste. Just check it's all there and we haven't got any missing squares like we did before. There we go. So next thing we did was to put this little horse in place. So to do that, I think what I'll probably do is move this up so that the UV starts about there, and there should be one little horse somewhere. There is. That's fine. I like where he is. And then create another loop cut and bring it down to just above the horse. So now if we select this ring, you'll see it there. And this bit, we can forget about that. I'm just going to merge it. Could merge it at the centre or merge it at the cursor and put it all out the way down there. So now we want to work out where our horses are going to go. Now, I think, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think there was 16 faces around here when I created this. So let's see, I guess we've probably really only got the option of having maybe 4 or 8 horses around here. Depends how small we want them. This is actually taken up about 3 faces, but we can't get 3 into 16, so it's not going to be even, so we'll make it 4. So what I'm going to do is select these 4 here, and I'm going to move them just on the X. I don't want them to go up or down, and just place them so the horse is kind of in the middle. And then we can do the same thing again, select them in the correct order, copy, select another 4, paste, another 4, oop, and the last 4. And now we've got 4 horses perfectly spaced around the column. So we've got the UV unwrapping bit done. If we select everything, you'll see that we've got 4 lots of 4 faces all on top of one another. Excuse me, we've got 2 lots of 16 faces on top of each other here and here. Supposedly that doesn't quite look the same, but I'm not too worried, it works. And then we've got 2 circles on top of each other as well. Now the reason I created another UV channel for the light map was because if you're going to be baking your lighting in Unity, this won't work. You can't have overlapping UVs for light baking. You can for textures, and it's a very, very good way of making things look unique or consistent, or however you want to call it, but you can't bake lighting with overlapping UVs. Everything has to have its own island, and you need a decent amount of padding between the islands, etc. So we'll do that in a bit, but for now what I'm going to do is finish off the shader in Blender, and then we'll do it all in Unity. And it's actually easier in Unity, but it's a good way of understanding how shaders work when we're building this up in here. So I'm going to just disconnect the alpha, and we'll bring in the colour and plug that in. So you can see now it's exactly the same, except it's now just the colour that's applied to it. We also want to bring in the metallic, because the Celtic braids are metal. Metallic always has to be set to non-colour. It will be by default set to sRGB, but because it's a grayscale map that's just given it values of 0 to 1 for every pixel to tell it how metallic it is, doesn't need colour. It needs to be set to non-colour data. So that is now metallic. The same for roughness. That needs to be set to non-colour. Just plug that directly into roughness. I'm just going to minimise these because it gets a bit crowded. So it's now looking a bit shiny and a bit metallic. The blue bit is also starting to look a little bit shiny as well. I don't know if you can see that. There's a bit of light glinting off it. And then we need the normal. Again, normal maps, even though they're purple, they still need to be set to non-colour data. And you don't just plug it directly into normal. You can see that's wrong because it's going from yellow to purple. It's trying to plug colour data into normal data, and so you need a normal map node which will convert it and tell it how to use the information correctly. All I did there was click add search, or you can do shift A and S and just searched for normal map. There it is, and you can just put it over the noodle and it'll automatically put it in, and you can see we're now yellow to yellow and purple to purple. So it's now using the normal map correctly, and it gives it some depth. So our horse looks like he's standing out from the surface, and the Celtic braid looks like it's standing out from the surface. So I'm very happy with that. I'll minimise that. And now we're going to set up the sandstone. And for that, I already have a texture. I'm just going to plug it straight into the base colour. So everything now has the sandstone texture, but obviously the metallic roughness and everything's still working. This bit looks ridiculous because this bit, if you remember, in the UV map was all compressed into one point. So it's literally picking up a single pixel of colour, and you're not getting any of the texture. But the way we're going to get around that is to use box mapping or box projection. So where it says flat, we change it to box, and nothing much has happened except we've now got some stretched lines where there should be sandstone blocks. But if you've got Node Wrangler installed, which is built into Blender, just go into preferences and search for Node Wrangler. Make sure that's ticked. Once you've got Node Wrangler installed, in your end panel here, there's a tab that says Node Wrangler, and you can add a texture setup. You can put these, helps if you actually select the texture, of course. Once you do that, you get these. You can add your mapping and texture coordinate nodes yourself, but these are some really handy shortcuts. And once you've done that, you need to change it from UV to object. And by magic, the sandstone is working perfectly all the way around it. That's exactly what we want. Except it's all sandstone. Even this metallic bit has got the sandstone texture on it. So we need to get the other textures instead, and that's where the alpha comes in, because the alpha tells you that anything you multiply with white is going to be true. Because white has a value of 1, black has a value of 0. So if you multiply it with black, then the result is 0. So basically none of your texture you're going to multiply it with is going to show through. It's going to be transparent and you'll see this sandstone. Don't know if that makes sense at the minute, but it will. So we'll just minimize that. We've got 2 textures that we want to mix together. And the way we'd do that is to add in a mix color node. We can plug that in there. Actually, that's not what we want at all. I'm just going to put that there. What we need to do is multiply. We need to multiply this with the alpha, don't we? I always have to work this out in my head before I start. So the alpha actually is non-colour as well. I think that's what we use there. So we need to plug in the colour with the alpha, and we'll put that into there and see what happens. And we're nearly there. The reason that's not working is because it's set to mix. It needs to be set to multiply, and then we need to turn the factor all the way up so it fully uses the alpha channel. And then we're going to do the same with the sandstone, only this time where we've got the white bits multiplied by the trim sheet, so that the trim sheet shown through. We want the black bits to show through, so we have to invert this so that these bits are black and the main background is white. So we do that by adding an invert colour node. And I'm going to plug that into there, and I'll bring that up here, and then we multiply these 2 together. So I'm just going to duplicate this by using Shift and D, because we've already got one. Don't need to go searching for one, and it's got everything set up correctly with a factor to 1 and multiply. And we plug these each in, A with B, plug that into the colour, and now you can see we've got the sandstone, and the black bits are essentially going to be transparent. And now what we do is we'll add these together. So I'm just going to move this over a bit, because this is where it starts getting cluttered. And we'll duplicate one of these, and we're going to change it to add. And we plug that one into there, and that one into there, and plug it into the base colour. And there we have it. We've got used our trim sheet, we've got a background, we've got our normal working, everything's looking fine. That's exactly how I want it. So, and we've used Magic UV to get all of these working correctly and perfectly spaced out and everything. So that's a handy, there's a lot of stuff on Magic UV, though it does way more than that, and it's well worth exploring. If you have a look, let's have a look here, Magic UV. There are videos on YouTube by the guy who's created it. I'm just going to search for GitHub, because I think his links might be on there. Did I not just see a section for tutorials as well? I don't know. But yeah, he explains everything down here, and as I say, there are YouTube videos you can look up by the guy who's created this, showing you all of the stuff it does. It's awesome and well worth getting. So I think what I was going to do next was to do it all in Unity. So first thing we're going to do is export this. Actually, you know what? No, I'll not. I'll export it. I'll show you what happens without the light map UV first as well. So to export it, we just, have I got me? Come on, Lisa. Here we go. Just make sure that your rotation and your scale, your rotation should be 0 and your scale 1. If they're not, just hit Control and A and select apply rotation and scale, and it'll reset everything so that this has all got a scale of 1 to 1, which is exactly what you Unity likes. And when you've done that, go File, Export, FBX, and I'm going to say Selected Objects, Mesh, and I'm going to put it into wherever this is, which happens to be on my D drive, Banter Projects, and I can't remember what I called it. Did I call it temp? I think I just called it temp. Hang on, come on Lisa, where are you? Temp, assets, and there it is. So we'll pop that in there. It may have something already built in. Does it have normals and stuff? No, it doesn't. Sometimes it'll automatically come with textures, but if you expand that, you can see it hasn't. It has. It's got the trim material. In fact, you know what you can do is select this, extract materials, and we're just going to stick it in the same folder, and now you'll see your material is separate and it's no longer built into the FBX. So this file's nice and ready to be used. It's already got that plugged in, so we can use this now. This is going to be our material. We just need to create a shader for it. So the shader, of course, we use Amplify Shader Editor because it's really the best. So we're going to create Amplify Shader, and I don't know what to call it, so I'm just going to call it Trim. Can always change the name after, but if you're going to be reusing the shader, it makes sense to give it a sensible name that can be used for any material that you know what it is. So I'm just going to drag the shader onto the material. You don't have to select all the time, you know, pulling down this and then looking for it in the menus. If you're creating your own shader, it's easier just to drag it straight onto the material and it works. So if I then double click the material, I can edit the material and the shader in one, which is quite handy. So the first thing we need to do is bring in the textures that we've used. So we'll bring in, let's see what we got. Old sandstone, which we've got there. For that, I think there's a shortcut for saving a copy, isn't there? Or is there? No, there isn't. Never mind. Save a copy. And I'm going to stick it into Banter Projects. Be easier if I searched for modified date, so that's at the top. Assets. So there's my sandstone. What else have we got? It would be, why don't I just copy them from here? It would have been easier if I'd just done this, wouldn't it? Although I haven't got the sandstone in there. So we'll copy all of them in. Just drag them, drag and drop from your folder. So I think we're ready to go. So we'll start by bringing in the colour and plug that into there and compile it, and that looks fine. That's good. We'll bring in the metalness, which we'll plug into metallic and compile. How's that looking? That's looking good. I'll just zoom in a little bit there. The normal. Oh, now what we haven't done, I'm just going to close that. We need to set up these materials properly. So this is a grayscale map, so we untick sRGB. This is a grayscale map, untick and apply. This is a normal map, so we have to tell it it's a normal map, apply. And this is a grayscale map, so untick that and apply. But the others are fine. This is sRGB, this is sRGB. So open up the material again. We'll put the normal in there and plug that in and compile. What does that look like? It's looking good. Roughness. Now roughness needs to be converted to smoothness because Unity uses smoothness. So we'll drag that in, and to convert it we're going to use a 1-. So you can either right click and search for 1- and it's there, or you'll see in square brackets there's the letter O. So you can either click on that, or you can hold down the letter O and click, and there's your 1-. So all the most commonly used nodes have shortcuts. So for instance, if I wanted to bring in a texture like this and I wasn't dragging it, I just wanted an empty node, you would hold down T for texture and click, and you've got a node ready to plug in. Or you could use M for multiply, which we're going to use in a minute, or A for add. But yeah, we need a 1-, so hold down O, plug that into there, and that into the smoothness. So we've gone from roughness to smoothness by inverting the image. We'll compile that. Now we've got nice shiny horse and a nice shiny metallic thing, decoration. So we want to work out how to do the where is it, the sandstone. We'll just drag that into there, and I'll move this back over here. Oop, oop, oop. Try again. I'm trying to make that window big again because I made it small. Okay, but the sandstone we used like box projection in Blender. So we're going to use a triplanar projection in Amplify. So we just search for triplanar, and it's got triplanar sample, and it's set to sphere. I'm going to change it. Am I going to change it? Possibly. Normally if it was a box you would change it to, well, I guess it's cylindrical, so we'll keep it at cylindrical. Basically what it means is if it's set to sphere, it uses one texture and does its best to wrap it around the texture as evenly as it can. With cylindrical you've got top, middle and bottom, so obviously it's clear what the top and the bottom is. That's your top, the middle is the sides, and you can have separate textures for each one, but for this I'm going to plug just one texture into all three. But we can't use a texture sample node. If we try and plug this in, it doesn't work, it won't take it. So what we have to use is a texture object node. So I'll get rid of that, and there isn't a shortcut for this, so we'll have to search for it. Texture object, there it is, and that we can plug in, and I'm going to plug it into all three, and I'm going to search for me sandstone, old sandstone it's called, there it is. And then that will just replace the albedo for now, plug that into there and compile it and see what it looks like. And there is our triplanar texture. So now we've got a couple of ways of doing this. If we were to follow the Blender example with all the multiply and add bits, we can. And we can do that by multiplying. Let's plug that back in to start with. Did I bring in the alpha? No, I didn't. We'll bring that in. So we'd multiply colour with the alpha. So M shortcut, just hold down M and click, and you've got a multiply node. Actually, let's just unplug that. because I don't really want to use there isn't an alpha channel, but I'm just anal and plug in RGB instead. So we'll plug that in with that and plug that into the albedo. See what happens. That's working fine. I'll just move that out of the way. And then we want to multiply this one with the inverse of the alpha. And for that, again, we use a 1 minus to convert it. And another multiply node. And we'll multiply that with that. Plug that in and see what it's like. And that's working fine. So now we've got the sandstone with the black. So now we just need to add these two together. So we hold down A, plug that into there, and that into there, and that into there, and compile. And we've got exactly the same result as we did with Blender. So the nodes are so similar. The maths at the end of the day is the same. You know, maths doesn't change. You just got to kind of work out, well, you know, black and white images are just values of 0 to 1. So what would we use to get the result that we want? However, there is a better way of doing it in Amplify, and that is using a lerp node. So instead of all of these math nodes, we can hold down L and use a lerp node. And what lerp stands for linear interpolation. And you'll see here we've basically got two inputs, A and B, which is for your two textures you want to mix together. But then it uses an interpolator, and for that it uses a black and white image, which it uses as an alpha channel. So instead of doing all this multiplication, we can just plug that into there, and we can take the trim sheet image, which will plug into there, and the alpha image, which will plug into there. And if we expand that, we can make sure it's working, which it is. If it's not, it's probably because you've got these the wrong way around. So for instance, if I plugged the trim sheet into the top and then the sandstone into the bottom, we've now got white with sandstone trim. It's just because they're the wrong way around. Just swap them over. It's easy enough to do. So that one goes into there. We can plug that into the albedo, and there we go. And now we can get rid of that and that and that and that. We've just got rid of all of it, and it's working fine. So that, oh God, what have I done? There we go. That is a really, really handy way of using trim sheets. Like I say, you could put as much as you liked on that trim sheet and just keep adding to it and, you know, doing different things, adding different decorations to whatever you're decorating. Doesn't just work with cylinders, it can work with anything. You could, you know, I might decide I want to bring in a cube, for instance, and we'll just scale it down a bit and move it over here and say we just want a horse, just a horse on one face and nothing else. We can absolutely do that. Just select the face and move it over the horse, and then make sure it's got the same material. Trim. He's on his side, so we'll just rotate that by -90 perhaps, and there we've got a horse on the side of a cube. These other faces, I'd just do exactly the same as I did with the other ones. So I'd keep that selected, Control and I to invert, go back to UV edit and select all of those ones and just merge at the cursor. And there we go. Sandstone box with a horse on one face. So by creating one image, you can decorate so many things. It's just awesome. Highly recommended. the only thing I haven't done is applied the scale on that one, and you'll see the sandstone change. Apply the scale and the sandstone is now at the same scale as the column to make it look a bit better, a bit more realistic. So if you really want to be playing around with Amplify, and I recommend you just experiment because you can do some awesome things, you could actually get rid of the metalness and the roughness, which is getting rid of two textures, which is great for optimization. Obviously you could do it by just using the alpha, and to do that I'm just going to bring that a bit closer. I'm going to get rid of the metalness and the roughness and the 1-. We'll move that normal out of the way because we're just going to be playing around with this. So what you can do, because this is a grayscale map, and let's assume that we want everything to be the same. Obviously you'd keep your maps if you had different values of metallic and roughness, but if you were simply just wanted to use values of 0 and 1, you could plug this into the metallic, and if I compile it, everything will become metallic, but it's all rough. So what we need to do, because it has no smoothness, it's got nothing plugged in, so there's 0 smoothness, so we can if we plug that into smoothness, it's suddenly very, very, very shiny, because all the white bits have a value of 1, which is the maximum. It only goes from 0 to 1, so it's got the maximum value of smoothness on there and the maximum value of metalness. Normally I use a maximum value because I just generally think, well, it's either metallic or it isn't. So I always turn metallic up to 1, but then play with the smoothness to make it more realistic. And to play with that, what you can do is just multiply it by a value of 0 to 1 again. So we can add a multiply node, and we'll add a float by holding down 1. A float is just a single value. If you hold down 2, you get a vector 2. If you hold down 3, you get a vector 3, etc. But I just want one value, which we can plug into there, and plug that into smoothness. And if we compile it, we actually want to tell it as well that it's a property. And the reason we want it to be a property, if we leave it as a constant and compile it, when you go back to the material, if I select that, there's nothing, I don't have this value's nowhere, doesn't exist. So we'll change it to a property, and we'll give it a name, which we're going to call smoothness. And we'll want it to have a minimum value of 0 and a maximum value of 1. And we'll maybe set the default value to 0.5, say, as a starter. And then we can, that's how it will, whenever we apply that material, it will always have a smoothness of 0.5, and we can adjust it here. So if I close that, we can adjust it with a slider and make it as metallic or as smooth or as rough as we like. You could do the same with metallic. You could do whatever you liked. And as I say, it's, if you're wanting everything on here to be metallic or smooth, you could just do away with the maps and just play around with the alpha channel. You could also, if I had a normal, which I do somewhere, I think, but I'm not using it, but if I had a normal map for this old sandstone, I could use another lerp node, set up exactly the same way. I'd just copy the whole setup here, but I would plug in the normal instead of the colour. So I would have the normal of the sandstone and the normal of the trim, plug that into the normal section, and you're actually blending normals as well. It works with anything. It's not just for colours. But this is an awesome way of playing around with things. And I really would recommend you experiment with it, because it's just brilliant. Next thing I wanted to show, because we've got 5 minutes left, was the lighting. So I'm just going to set up some new lighting settings here. I'm going to mark this as it needs to contribute to global illumination. We'll go to lighting and I'll just hit auto generate. Actually, you know what, I'll not. I want to set this to GPU preview for speed first. And then I'll hit auto generate. Probably take a couple of minutes the first time, but it'll get quicker. There we go. So, you'll see we've got some weird stuff going on with the shadows, with the lighting. This is in like a dark box. The reason this isn't working is because of all the overlap of the islands. If you remember, when we did it, we got 4 sets of 4 around here in order to get 4 horses all overlapping each other. And we've got 2 of these overlapping and 2 rows of this and 2 rows of this. It's really not going to work properly. So what you need to do is just create a second UV channel, which I always call light map, so that I don't unwrap the wrong thing or make changes to the wrong thing. I usually do a smart UV unwrap, give it a little bit of padding, and if I get rid of that so you can see it properly, that is basically our light map ready to go. So I would export that again, and I'll overwrite the original one. And now it'll bake again because it realizes that there's a change has happened. And our lighting is much better. We do have a dark line here, and that's probably because of some UV overlap still. I haven't given it enough padding. You'll see it says here, this game object has overlapping UVs. If you double click on this and go to UV overlap, you can see where it's overlapping. Oh, it has red patches because each one of these little squares on the grid is a texel. And here, the edge of this island and the edge of this island are encroaching on the same column of texels here. So it's baking the lighting onto each one of these. It's basically a pixel of colour, but it's showing on both edges. And so we're getting this dark seam, which shouldn't be there. Another way of visualising it is to go into UV overlap here. And you can see it there. You can actually see it in real time, and there's a bit of overlap there as well. To get rid of that, I would either unwrap it again with a little bit more padding. So instead of 0.3, I could do 0.03. I'd maybe increase it to 0.04 and try again. Or you can increase the scale in the light map. So I could maybe make this, say, instead of a scale of 1, I could make it 1.5. Make it a bit bigger, which will increase the size of the light map and will increase the quality of the shadows, but will take up more resources because you're going to end up with much larger light maps eventually and larger scenes. In Blender, you can increase the padding, but your islands will be smaller, so you might notice a slight reduction in quality of the shadows as well. So it's a bit of a balancing act. That's still not quite there, so I'm going to change that from 1.5 to 2 and see if that fixes it. And that looks much better. So if I take that back to shaded mode, it's still working. I should have let it finish. There we go, back to shaded mode, and we should have got rid of that line now. I don't see it at all. So yeah. if we turn off auto generate, we should be able to see that this lighting has properly baked as well, even though we've got the light map here. By turning off the directional light, and I didn't have it set to baked. Let's just do that again. In fact, you know, not auto generate, we'll just, come on, clear bake data, generate lighting. You know what it is? What a bloody numpty I am today. You can tell I'm tired. Turn on the direct light, bake it again, let it finish, and then turn off the direct light, and you'll see nothing happens. It's not in darkness because the light is no longer having any effect on it because these shadows are now baked into the object. So, and you can tell they're baked because if I was to rotate it, if I can select the damn thing, the shadows should rotate with it, which they are. And I'm going to go a little bit more in detail, I think, probably next week with bacon. I've covered it before, but I do think light bacon is something that's well worth covering because it really will make a big difference, especially in the performance, in the spaces. The more lights you have, the more you're going to see a reduction in performance. Your frame rate's going to drop. You're going to have problems with lights flickering on and off and all kinds. Baking it will resolve all of that. You'll see a massive increase in performance. So we'll cover that next week. And I think maybe the week after we'll go into depth with occlusion culling as well. So, there we go. We're done. Sorry for me being looking a bit different. I was playing around with avatars and didn't realise until I came in and thought, sod it, I'm staying like this. So I hope I didn't confuse anybody.
Avatar's looking good.
Anybody got any questions for today? Or are we all good?
You know, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little curious. Just in these last few minutes here, when you went back into Blender to bake your second light map, your UV light map.
Yeah.
I was wondering, maybe it's not the best way to do it, but I was kind of curious why you didn't show us the in Unity how there's a little tick to generate UV light maps, which I'm sure you know about.
Yes,
Maybe
I do know
you don't
about
trust
it. I do know about it. I
curious,
don't trust
you don't
it.
use it, or
I don't use it. No.
okay.
I will absolutely.
I find that it has pretty.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there. Yes. So when you select your FBX file under Model, there is an option to generate light map UVs.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work.
Super
if
easy.
You have created an object the way I have that's got overlapping islands, it doesn't always separate them. The other problem with generating light map UVs is very often you end up with very small islands and a huge amount of unused space, and your lighting just doesn't look good. You have very little control. You can, under light map UV settings, you can play around a little bit here with it, object scale and resolution and everything else. But if you don't really know what you're doing, you can make things worse. And as I say, just by ticking that on its own, you've got no control over it. You don't know what results you're going to get. And very, very often it has a lot of wasted space because your islands are so tiny. Your actual lighting and shadows can look really blocky as well. So I never ever use it because it's just not reliable, in my opinion. I always do it myself because at the end of the day, Unity will always look for a second UV channel by default. If it finds one, it'll use it for the light maps. If it doesn't find one, it'll attempt to use the first UV channel unless you tick that box. So I just create a second UV channel because I know I've got full
Yeah, I didn't
control.
know
I can
that.
see exactly what it's doing. If I want to increase the padding between islands, I can do. So easy. Done.
Right.
So yeah, I hope that's answered
And
your
then
question.
maybe along those lines, when you have your light maps or your normal maps or whatever, these other alpha stuff in Unity, do you compress them ever? To, save on optimization. There's a little tick, right, for crunch compression.
There
Uh, or
is, and absolutely, if that's the
I feel
way
like
the route you want to go down, absolutely do it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, keeping the light maps as small as possible is the way to go. And if you're getting the results you like by crunch compression, absolutely do whatever you can to optimize the space always.
but you
Per-
sort of don't. You let it go.
well, usually I use Bakery, which does everything for you. It's really, really quick.
I was going to agree with that one.
You get fantastic
Bakery.
results. You get very small light maps. And I can't recommend it enough. But it's a paid for product. So I'll only ever use
on.
Bakery in here if I know it's going to take forever to use Unity's built-in light mapper, because we haven't got that much time during the session. But when it's small things, I'll use the built-in light mapper so people can do it themselves. And if they don't have Bakery, they know exactly what I'm doing.
But get Bakery.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always on sale.
Ponies are
Wait for it on
convert
sale,
as
buy
well.
it on sale.
Always on sale.
Absolutely. It is fantastic.
It's not worth.
And I guess get Amplify too if you don't have it, which is often on
Yes,
sale
again,
itself.
It's always on sale as well. Them
Yes.
two are a must.
Yes, and quite
And,
often, if you
yeah,
keep
good-
an eye
good
on
value.
Humble Bundle, you can get both of them in one bundle as well. They'll often come together at half price. So definitely worth keeping an eye open for them.
If you do want to mess about with UVs in Unity, use Pro Builder and use that UV option, because you can definitely pack your aisles and everything in there. So if you do want to just use Unity for doing that thing, use
missed
Pro Builder.
I missed the first half. I came in right around when you were mentioning Magic UV, which I'm not sure what that does, but I'm sure that's worth looking into.
Definitely.
or
I
you
would
wouldn't have
recommend
mentioned
looking at Magic UV, yeah. As I say, it's a guy called Nutty, I think he's called, Nutti, who created it. And he has actually put some tutorial videos up on YouTube and explains really well all the different features of it, what you can do. But I find that copy-paste UV thing the most useful.
I mean, is it like a Blender plugin or something? Or I don't even understand.
Yes,
I guess I should look into it.
It is. With earlier versions of Blender, it's built in as one of the add-ons. With the newer 4.x versions of Blender, it's an extension, but it's still there. And if you can't find it, it's always on GitHub, and you can download the latest version there as well. So
Yeah, good tip.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, always this is the best. I've missed a couple weeks, but I got to get my act together. This is like the best. You're so good. There are a lot of tutorials, but it's just these are so good.
Oh well.
Thank you so much.
Gosh, thanks.
Great job.
Well, this. I've just realised we're still recording, so I'll I'll end that. This will be up